But individually, just domestically, the kind of dependence we have externally, there is an effort to wean away from that. That's why green transition becomes very important. Of course, the financing is a huge concern, but also the risk taking. Please appreciate the rooftop announcement that has recently happened. We have to socialize this idea. Right now, green transition is limited to 5 states of the country, and overwhelmingly Gujarat, a little bit Maharashtra, even further Karnataka, very little in Tamil Nadu, and some extent in UP, but that's it. And that is not enough. Right? So the energy security becomes very important as far as Atmanirbharta. And the third is defense. Now in defense, we are, of course, you know about defense far better than I do, but the directions are all in the right way. Right? We have started small, but growing manufacturing capability, and I think there is a renewed sense of confidence that is coming. And please treat ISROs and the kind of satellite data, etc., that is going also into this larger realm of privatizing a lot of these things so that new innovations come up and we become increasingly more productive as far as the defense sector is concerned. The fourth point I want to say, and this is why I'm saying that the conversation now has to move forward. How is this likely to play out? What we are talking about, Ashwani ji, and I again second NK's point, and I've said this to you publicly before also, volume 2 and 3 also have to come because we have only scratched the surface as far as Atmanirbharta is concerned. What you are talking and we're thinking about at the national level right now also has to be transitioned to individual level. Please appreciate that our economic policy is also moving towards making individuals more valuable. The idea that government will give job, the idea that you have to wait for the right job to come. By the way, we have high youth unemployment. It's a global phenomenon. There's nothing to be alarmed. But you know, our graduate unemployment is the highest, meaning people who have graduate and above degrees are 5 times more likely to be unemployed today than a person with primary education. So there is growing expectations and people want to do more. So our growth model, in some sense, if you think of saturation policy we are following. Over the last 10 years, there is a lot of effort made to make basic amenities available to everyone. Electricity, drinking water, toilet, housing. So all of this is laying the ground rules for rising human productivity for the next 100 years. We want people to be entrepreneurs. Therefore, Startup India, Stand Up India. This focus towards renewed faith in the private individual enterprise of this country is very important. So we are also thinking, and we have to do this, there is no other way. We have to reorient towards experiment and innovation. Therefore, again, the announcements of the recent, not just this budget, but in the last several years, towards moving and making younger people experiment and think of newer solutions is a very, very important. So again, the society is under transformation. Atmanirbharta is not just about geopolitics, it is about fundamentally reorienting the real economy of India and human capital in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Shamika ji. Now I request Gurumurthy ji to give his speaking address.
Thanks Ashwini ji and the panelists who expounded the basic ideas that have been brought together and presented in the form of a very important publication, Atmanirbhar and Swadeshi Paradigm. Of course, Ashwanimahajan and me have worked in the Swadeshi movement since the 90s. And I still remember immediately after the COVID struck, MK rang me up and said, Guru, this whole idea of global supply chain, the very idea of globalization seems to be collapsing. Now we have to go back to the drawing table to find what is the alternative. You know, the subject of economics has been itself a difficult subject, and more difficult are the economists who handle the subject. It is said that if there are 5 economists, there are 6 opinions. You can understand. Every person has 1.25 opinion. But surprisingly, in this volume, all seem to be agreeing somewhere. That is not the effect of economics. It is the effect of trans-economic implications on economics. So I would like to get into what is the trans-economic implication input, the dominant idea that has so far not impacted on economics, which has begun to impact. Before that, we would like to have a helicopter view of history as to how the present subject of economics, the present theories, the present models, and the present whole academic pursuits and think tanks and economies have been shaped in the last 100 years, minimum the last 75 years. First is, mercantilism lasted for 300 years, free trade lasted for 150 years, socialism lasted for 75 years, and globalization lasted for just 25 years. You can understand the shelf life of all these ideas which have been expounded by action and reaction mode is crashing. That is very important for us. When we took up the challenge against globalization, it was not out of any hatred for the world or that we are something unique. Every country is unique. Some countries are more unique than the others because they have a huge backlog of problems on their history side. America has no history to handle because they had wiped out the history. So they began a new society, a new country with huge resources and all that. But it is surprising that they became the model for the world with a completely new situation for India, China, or for Asia to look at America or the West as the model to develop itself was a fundamentally wrong approach. And this is what we thought in 1990s. And because of my background as a villager, I could understand India from a different and maybe a very important aspect of India that was missing in the Indian economic discourse, even political discourse, generally in the intellectual discourse. I could perceive, because I was at both ends. I was in business, I was associated with the problems of the most modern businesses, finance. At the same time, had my public life experiences which made me understand that globalization was not going to last. In fact, my debate without meeting Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati started in 1993-94. Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati wrote a 73-page paper. I don't know whether you had opportunity to read it, Nandu. In which he had said that...
it's a reply to Stiglitz, his work on globalization and its discontents. Jagdish in that sought to address that.
But why was it removed from the Government of India website? I don't know. It was there for a long time. So Jagdish Bhagwati had written that India need not have to do anything. It has just to do one thing. It is saving about 19 to 20% of its income. It should cut the savings to 9 to 10% and turn that into consumption, and it will produce so much of demand, so much of employment. You can't believe the kind of growth that India can achieve if it halves its savings. And where will the investments come? There's so much of money available, they will all come and invest in India. And don't think economics is limited to borders. Economics has come to remove borders. This was the kind of ruling thought against which we were fighting. So somebody went and asked Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati, Mr. Bhagwati, you say this. There is one Mr. Gurumurthy who feels that India has to develop by an alignment between the national and global efforts. And I used to say that national effort has to be the core. Global can only be the additive. This used to be my exposition. Of course, at that time, Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati was economists as a whole were ruling the world, not politicians. In fact, Economist magazine in the last week of June 2009 said, the arrogant profession has been humbled by the 2008 crisis because economists had become more important than elected political leaders. So Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati said, Gurumurthy, who's he? So I said, he also, people say he's an economist. I was never an economist. But because of the Swadeshi movement, I came to be regarded as an economist. Gurumurthy is an economist. If he can be an economist, you can call me a Bharatanatyam dancer. This was the extent of dominance and arrogance that the profession of economics wielded at that time. And we were fighting against it. In fact, of course, my interaction with N.K. Singh goes back for a long time. And he knows that I have a very different kind of thinking. He was part of the system, he was part of the global system. And he was a player in both sides actually. He could understand the difficulties of India, and at the same time he could understand the compulsions of the Indian system. But we had very, very intense discussion. In the last discussion we had worked with Pranab Mukherjee on the gold thing.
Yes.
And I will tell you a little more about, because unless we understand the Indian society, which I will deal with later, but the clue to understanding the Indian society for the first time I'm an economist, I find in this Atmanirbhar book. So I will find out what are the core areas or core terms or not even ideas, somewhat a philosophic underlining, a philosophic agreement among the writers in this book. You see, Atma Swadeshi in the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This is what Professor Chatin Chaturvedi says. And Shamika Ravi speaks of Indian characteristics. And Anantanageshwaran says many Indian practices offer global policy alternatives. These are all important because I am going to connect all of them to what I am going to say. Professor Ashima Goel speaks of Atma in the sense of higher spiritual and moral purposes. Professor Sanjeev Sanyal says, leveraging indigenous strength. It's very important. The word indigenous is very important to me at least. Dr. Sanjay Baru says that the Indian society is characterized by a variety of social practice inimical to growth, quoting Dr. Krishnamurthy. And unfortunately, there are also Indian characteristics which promoted growth. But because of the approach that Weberians and Marxian thinkers had, the entire Indian characteristics was regarded as inimical to growth and throw. Like you throw the baby with the bathtub. So, and Rajiv Kumar and Shashank Shah speaks of Atmanirbhar Bharat as almost a Jan Andolan. These are all very important terms which I am going to connect to how economics is shifting. And then Ashok Chavan speaks of Indus civilization and Vedic cultural consciousness as the base of India's high performance till the 18th century. Sanjeev Puri speaks of environmental sustainability as intrinsic to Atmanirbhar. Of course, in case he is an economist and a policy maker, he cannot speak in such plain terms, but he has put in a very, very important term. Increasingly, inward looking has become necessary. Because, his words are like Upanishads. You have to find deeper meaning into what he says. So you have to write a huge volume to understand what he says. So in this, if you look at, and Sajinarayan speaks of integral humanism, about which many people have not read. I have read it in depth. I was one of the persons deeply influenced by what it meant. And it is one of the texts on which the economists should focus if they want to really think of Atmanirbhar, because my entire idea of Atmanirbhar, which I am going to talk in concrete terms, not in philosophical terms, is drawn from that single text. It's about 50-60 pages. As short as Mahatma Gandhi's Hind Swaraj and Deendayal Upadhyay's Integral Humanism and Mahatma Gandhi's Hind Swaraj must be compulsory reading for all economic students. Otherwise, you cannot understand what is Atmanirbhar. We will be thinking of Atmanirbhar means some raising of import duties or cutting export duties, or these are all the things which are the outcome. But what is the drive? Social, philosophic drive that is reflected in the lifestyle of the people. How the lifestyle has been sustained despite our education system is what I am going to say. And without that lifestyle, what would have happened to the so-called Atmanirbhar is also what I am going to say just now. So I find a common thread: Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Indian characteristic, Indian practices, high spiritual and moral purpose, indigenous strength, Jana Andolan, civilizational consciousness, environmental sustainability, inward looking. All this is a thread. It has nothing to do with economics. All the things I listed has nothing to do with economics as it has been understood and taught and is being believed and practiced all over the world and even in India. So now, all indicate a return to a position which was originally economics. Economics was regarded as a worldly philosophy. See, there is a philosophy needed for life, for people, for a nation. And remove that philosophy, there is nothing to live for. Philosophy decides lifestyle, lifestyle decides habits, habits decide what you need and don't need, and that decides what you produce and don't produce. There is some kind of a linkage between philosophy and ultimately economics, which our people put it in a different way, which I will link later. But to come to the Western way of understanding economics. When the 2008 economic crisis took place, as I said, the Economist magazine came out with the front page cover story. The economics textbook is melting away. So the question, what is wrong with economics? And then the editorial said, the economists had become such powerful people. If Alan Greenspan ruled the US, not the US Federal Reserve System, but the whole world for 20 years. In fact, the Economist magazine says, both the parties had a bipartisan understanding. If something happened to Alan Greenspan, he should, two spectacles must be put on him and his dead body must be made to sit on the US Federal Reserve System. So that was the extent of his influence over the entire world. And he said about Japan, he said irrational exuberance. 2.5% the stock market fell on that day is one word. So you can understand the clout the economists had, the power that the subject of economics wielded. And finally the Economist magazine said these people are fighting like children in the streets, each calling the name the other by name, using all kinds of wrong words, woolly-headed and this kind of things which you see low-level politicians use against each other. It was not an economic crisis. We must understand, the economists must definitely understand that is economics in crisis. It is not an economic crisis. But it was understood. People many economists spoke. Bradford DeLong said, we have moved away from the position that economics is a worldly philosophy and economists are worldly philosophers. This is a very important fundamental which the economists forgot completely, and moved away into a Newtonian model of mechanically viewing the human behavior, the human thought, the human lifestyle. We don't move like that. Human beings are very different. So only a philosophic underpinning to any subject will help you to understand the long-term truth. Otherwise you will be moving from year to year, quarter to quarter. Now it has become so short-termist. As a business advisor 30 years back, I used to tell my clients, look at 10 years, 15 years ahead. What's going to happen to your industry, to your technology, to this. your market, your own ownership patterns, your HR model, all these I used to tell them you must have a 10-year plan. Everything has been destroyed by a quarterly approach to business, and overnight interest rates decide the mood of the nations today. This is where China overtook the entire West. The West was locked in quarterly result and overnight interest mode, and they decided they have a 25-30 year game. You see the difference, the output. And they managed everything. And they managed their own, of course, they had a very unique political system which they could do. But the important point is that when we are talking about Atmanirbhar in the context of these different pulls and pressures that mount on the world, on the subject of economics, on policy making, on trade, finance, and also governments. Where do we stand as a country? You know, a country of 1/6 of humanity that it aspires for self-reliance is natural. If you are a country with 1/100th of world's population, you can rely on the world. 1/6 of humanity can never be reliant on the world. It's a fundamental thing. But to talk about self-reliance in India was a crime. In fact, when we spoke about this, somebody called me a Neanderthal economist. You understand what is Neanderthal? Before human beings became fully grown, whatever the mental faculties they had is the kind of thing that was credited to me. I still remember when I addressed in Hyderabad, the Administrative Staff College of India, huge gathering, because in those days people wanted to listen, there is anybody who is talking the alternative viewpoint, whether they agreed or not. So when I explained the concept of Swadeshi, Atmanirbhar, self-reliance, one person, I think he was an ex-army man, he stood up and said, people like you must be shot dead because you were taking the country 500 years back. You can understand the pressure that was there on the people who thought differently. Now I want to tell you, when the Prime Minister spoke about, because this is going to be my final part of presentation which will link to every bit of what we think as Atmanirbhar in concrete terms. I am not going to talk about Atmanirbhar in philosophic terms. People have talked enough philosophy. But what is it? When we talk about sustainability, what is it? When we talk about food security, what is it? Food security not in terms of only food security for India. Food security for the world. And in environmental terms, what is that we are talking? Have we anything to offer to the world? Or are we going to be mere consumers of what is being dished out to the world? Are we going to be contributors of idea to the world by what we are, by our lifestyle, our habits, and how we are managing the environment? Or are we going to say, come on, this is the environmental theory we have developed, you do this? Have we an alternative thought? If you have an alternative thought, yes, you have something to offer to the world, and that is Atmanirbhar. And I would like to mention just 3 aspects. One, you know, the whole world, 3 things are very important in life. Food. Nobody can deny food is important. Second, housing. It is very important. Third, environment. Environment is more important than everything. Now, I will just look at what is food. You know, the world is 29% of the world's surface is earth, out of which 10.3% is farmland. Out of which 2.4% is used for crop farming, 2.3%. And the rest is used for meat farming. Out of this 2.3%, 1% we Indians. That is all the agricultural farmland we have. The entire Indian farmland is 1% of the world, and that is the entire farmland of the world. We don't use any farmland for meat cultivation. Please keep it in mind somewhere when I am going to talk about what we think as food security. So in this one, why 1% of farmland for people living in just 2.4% of the global land area. How do they feed themselves? Not only they, when the Prime Minister spoke about earth as a family, one earth, one family, it is very different from Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is just seen as world as one family, human beings as one family. No, the entire creation as one family. This is not a philosophy. 18% of human beings, 30% of bovine population, 40% of the entire cattle population, 8% of the birds and mammals live in India on 2.4% of the land. From food grown in just 1% of the land area. Has anyone thought, how is this great, this unbelievable thing happening? Unless you understand that there is a philosophy, there is a lifestyle, which considers even animals important. You know, in 1980s and 1960s and 70s, it was a huge food crisis. Our animal population kept on increasing in that period. Nobody ate the animals because they didn't have food. But do we understand what all these figures mean? Because macroeconomists believe that if you look at inflation, if you look at GDP, if you look at employment, if everything is all right, the society is all right. But you look at how the food economy is going. I'll tell you why, how it is happening. 83% of the calorie value is generated only in crop farming. Only 17% is generated in meat. 63% of the protein value is generated in crops. Only 37% in meat. That is why we have been able to feed our entire population. Our crop farming, which results in the crores and crores of people hooked to grains, cereals, and eating less and less meat. You know, our meat consumption is 3.1 kg per head per annum. It was 5.2 in 2001. It has actually gone down because women are not very happy cooking meat at home. They ask the men to eat in the stalls, and that is why there is a huge explosion of meat stalls all over the country. But actually the meat consumption has come down. If you look at America, it is 124 kg per head per annum. It's almost over 100 in most of the European countries. Japan, which had just 3-4 kilos in 1950, it is now eating almost 50 kg per head per annum. And China, which was somewhat equal to us, maybe a little more, it is now eating as much as Japan does. You know what is the contribution of food to CO2 gas emission? 10 to 100 times. 10 to 100 times. In fact, these are all things which used to be discussed before the Paris Climate Summit in 2014. You know what happened at that time? There were environmentalists who just suggested that we must have one meat-free holiday, Monday. The entire meat lobby crushed it. Afterwards, they changed from climate to global warming. Now everything is reduced to 1.5 degrees. Environment is gone, ecology is gone, lifestyle is gone, because we now look at the supply side. How electricity should be produced, how energy should be produced, what is the discipline of producing energy has become more important than what we spend the energy for. For example, if the whole world takes to the American way of eating food, in fact somebody has spoken, what is wrong with burgers and things like that? If let us assume all of us give up our way of life and take to burgers, India will need 6 times the farmland it has. If you want, any of you want to look at what are the sources of my Our World in Data.com gives all these figures, which is supported by all the think tanks all over the world. We will need 6 times the agricultural land. We will need 2.5 times the size of India if we take to American food habits. Do we know that? Now, it is human right to say I will have the right to eat whatever I want to eat. How anti-economics is that thought? How anti-national is that thought? how anti-environment is the thought. Do we understand? There is a clash between human rights and economics, human rights and food security, human rights in India. These are the issues. One. This, let us assume the world takes to Indian food habits. It will need only 40% of the agricultural land it uses today. If the world takes to American food habits, it will need 140% of the agricultural land it has today. If only food has come into the environmental discourse, the West will be eternally paying the rest in terms of green tax. Why we Indians can't think of this? Because we don't think, we only quote the Americans, we only quote some sweet water or salt water economic think tanks, and we are very happy because we have quoted them, we are believed here. It's wrong. We have been a society for 5,000 years. In fact, Angus Madison expounded the correct theory. If a country has been able to maintain stable population over 1800 years, it must have had a prosperous economy. And that is why, of course, many people questioned it, and finally they have come to the conclusion that is the right way to look at it. It's a very, very important thing. We must first understand the Indian society, our lifestyle, our values, our philosophy, our food habits, to know what is Atmanirbhar. It is not about importing food from abroad. We are importing lifestyle from abroad. When we are exporting, has anyone in India, any think tank in India, explained the Indian food habits as the solution to the world? That is our contribution to the world. Instead, we are talking about food imports, which farmer. We make it into such a trivial and petty affair. You can understand how economics has been brought to such low level of understanding life, which has nothing to do with what actual life is. This is food. Next, I will come to housing. We have about in America in 1950, 3.5 persons was the strength of a household, which has now become 2.5. The reduction of one per household, 1 person per household, has meant construction of 35 million more houses at 8.5 billion cost and the 8 trillion cost, and the environmental cost unmeasured. In fact, European Union has made a study that if there is increase in number of households, what is the impact on environment? It's huge. They said they have only looked at the financial impact, 8.5 trillion. Let us come to India. We have 4.9 persons per household in India. It has not varied much. It was about 5.2 in 1951, and now it is wobbling between 4.5 to 4.9. Because we live with our parents, we live with our grandparents, we live with our people who cannot take care of themselves, this is not economics. This is not just sociology. There is a behavioral model, there is a philosophic and ethical model. So we take care of them. With the result, we have 4.5 persons per household. Now, if that comes to 2.1, we will need 135 million more houses. You have no place. What to talk of money? Do we understand economics in that sense, Atmanirbharta in that sense? That there is a huge link between the way you live, your lifestyle, your purpose of life. Restraint on yourself is the very drive of Atmanirbharta. This is how I am talking real. I am not talking about philosophy. In fact, the economists, elders, policy makers, IAS officers, all these educational institutions, professors have given up this philosophy. The ordinary people of India who have kept this philosophy. It is because of them we have been able to live, otherwise we would not have lived. Now, third thing is about environment. I read an interview about a fortnight back in the first flap of Economic Times, where an environmental specialist said, world is warming up. Indian vegetarians are the only mitigating factor. Does the Supreme Court know it? Does the Parliament know it? Does the media know it? How many think tanks know it? So Atmanirbharta is a sustainable way of life which has been propagated for hundreds and hundreds of years. Even non-vegetarians in India are not non-vegetarians in the sense in which they are outside. A non-vegetarian is still not the main food. It is sabji. And you can't eat on Amavasya day, you can't eat on Ekadasi day, you can't eat on Monday, you can't eat on Saturday. These are all self-restraint you have put on yourself despite the taste. Otherwise you would have eaten up all. You know what is the cattle population of India? 535 million. So the Atmanirbharta study, when you are making the second volume, you must include what is the Atmanirbhar way of life, what has sustained us. Other things are industrial products and services and employment. Right? These are all superstructure built on the fundamentals. So, environment, food, housing, anything you take. It has nothing to do with Bombay, it has nothing to do with Delhi, it has nothing to do with, it may have something to do with Chennai. And certainly the economic thinking, the policy making, the discourse, everything is confined to 2 or 3 metropolitan cities in India, and we have to break out of it. That is where I think those who really think about Atmanirbharta will have to focus. That is the basis on which India will stand. If India is maintaining 1/6 of world's population, 30% of bovine population, 40% of cattle population, 8% of birds and animals, and still have 21% forest coverage. It is because of our lifestyle. We can't cut the tree. In our village, you can't cut a tree if there is a pregnant woman in that village. We can't see a green tree being cut. There are periods you can cut the tree. There are periods you can't cut the tree. It is there in tribal areas. It is there in villages. But we will cut any tree to build a house here, to build an office here. We have lost that emotional connect with nature. We don't regard nature as sacred at all. So I think it's a much larger issue. If I speak, it will be like Bharatanatyam dancer speaking. It is the real experts who must begin talking in these terms.
Thank you. Thank you, Gurumurthy ji, for that stimulating talk. I mean, there will be many takeaways for, because it's so comprehensive, everybody will have their own takeaways. But for me, I think one point which you mentioned about how in climate change discussions, we are not able to put these ideas forward. The Prime Minister talked about life mission. That I think happened about 2-3 years ago, in the 2 or 3 COPs ago. But we have not been able to...
Because we don't know.
Yeah, these all points.
We know very little about India.
Yes, sir. And I think this is what the point you also made in your Niti lecture.
In fact, I must say at this point, it is actually when I spoke to the Prime Minister about all this, he asked me to address the Niti Aayog. That address contains most of these facts.
But following that, Anand is not here, but Anand Nageshwan raised a number of points. And I think I could see and I think you're working on them and you're going to
came to
get
Chennai,
back
had
to
a
that.
discussion with me where we are from.
But I could see that sense of, what was it? Well, let me not use any word there, but he felt that how do we sell these ideas? That was the thing, even to our own people. How do these ideas get into the policy policy makers start thinking about it. I think that was the issue of the Niti Aayog had. And I do remember that after your Niti Aayog talk, and there were some question answers and so on, the video was, and there those experts from the Niti Aayog who asked those questions, they were stunned absolutely, because they had not linked up economics with the lifestyle and all these ideas that you were mentioning. And I think that was followed by questions from Anand Nageshwar. So maybe there are these ideas for your next book. I think we should pick up some of those and expand them. So thank you very much for this wonderful talk. And now we have some time for Q&A. Anyone would like to come in? We have about 20 minutes.
I find, Guru, this idea of vegetarianism, food habits, exceedingly fascinating. And the fact that our lifestyle, in terms of the much lower percentage of people who eat meat in this country as compared to averages elsewhere. I'm interested and curious that when earlier the idea of one day of vegetarian food, how successfully and in what manner was it not only killed, but it was deflected in the debate going in multiple directions. And we must go back to before, let us say, the next COP29, which will take place in October, November next year. I think that we need to be operational. How do we put this on the radar of the people who really would do? The UNFCCC is the one that prepares the report every year in accordance with those who help with the UN. How do we inject this? I think it would be, we would be doing a service to the rest of the world if we do promote that the next UNFCCC report at least initiates some study, because right now it may look like a very low idea, but since a lot of figures and data is available, it would be exceedingly useful to inject this new dimension on, and life has been used, sustainable lifestyle has been used, so that's not new. But what it means in tangible terms, changing your behavioral and food habits, which can have these multiplier effects. I'm really very, very keen and curious too.
Okay, whatever I talk is not going to be heard. With the kind of attention, if you talk, it will be heard.
Okay, Smita? Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, I must congratulate you, Arvind, and all of the distinguished panelists for a wonderful discussion. And it resonates so deeply because, as you may know, we have also been working on Swadeshi issues for some time. And one issue that I would like to put on the table is the need for R&D. Because as someone said, if you increase the R&D, you become competitive. And then you don't need imports. So that was it's a very simplistic equation, but still I think it is very important to tackle the issue of why we don't have enough R&D in our country. And one of the, we have been taking it up with various branches of government, on an issue-based basis. And I also heard from Arvind that you've also been taking it up. So I would appeal to all of you here with your clout and your eminence to put this at the forefront of the agenda. And this is, Shamika Ravi mentioned, 3 sectors. I would add semiconductors to that. We need very much, that's the foundational technology for everything, including AI. And we have an idea for the environment, which I would like to take up with Professor Gurumurthy and Arvind also. But I don't take your time.
Thank you. What's sir?
Very inspiring talk, Gurumurthy sir, and congratulations for the book. Those of us who want to understand climate change more and more, highly fraudulent subject. I have seen it for 35 years in MOEFCC. And I just, with the paucity of time, I just want to flag one or two points. One is, which sir you already covered in some way or the other, that the report card is out. Report card for the world is out. And the body which is respected by the so-called Western scientists who create a narrative and debate and also an optics is the IPCC, jointly between WM and UNEP. IPCC 2023 report says that whole of South Asia, sir, it is not just the World in Data or Oxford. The IPCC now says that whole of South Asia, India included, with 24% of human population, their contribution to GHG emissions is less than 4%. But we need, first of all, among our research community, decolonization of mind and respect for our own culture and heritage.
As it is functional.
As it is.
It's not some books, it is there in some books and libraries.
Yes, sir. And there was something on ease of doing agriculture. I am tempted to say, and with your permission, sir, just 1 minute, that how the agriculture is done in this country. Small farmers who till hard, toil hard. And now what the Western world is telling in the name of climate change, that you also be a site for our mitigation. Whereas it is predominantly a site of adaptation. And who has the highest cattle population in the world? Not China, India. With highest cattle population, every sixth individual in the world when breeds is an Indian. With this kind of thing, 2.4% of land area and 1% of what you said, sir, and 8% of biodiversity, 40,000 wild elephants, maximum tiger population in the world, so on and so forth. The agriculture people, small farmers, marginal farmers, they toil hard, till hard, I again say this, and make food for themselves, make us Atmanirbhar, make us self-sufficient in the grains, and also fill the belly of the world, because we are the second largest rice exporter, we are the 9th largest wheat exporter. Tell me, I can keep on citing data. But this thing, we hardly understand. And people tell us that now you put carbon credits in agriculture. What kind of thing we are heading towards? So decolonization of mind is important. Everybody wants to work on India. All the world wants to work on India. Nobody in India wants to work on any country, nor for itself, in the right sense.
Sir, I just add to what you said about
Sir.
there are 100 million small and marginal farmers in India whose production is only a backward integration of their kitchen, virtually. This was the position of Russia in 1920. There was one Victor Chino. We must all read Victor Chino. Victor Chino told the Russians, because Russian farming was small and marginal farming. There was no large farm in Russia. So he said, please allow the family farming and remove the family farmer from the definition of kulaks. Don't collectivize their farming. Lenin tolerated him, of course. At that time, the communist revolution, the mood was so much against anybody having property. How can you have 2 acres of land? How can he have 3 acres of land was the issue. Lenin tolerated him. He produced a body of writing, of course in Russian, and Stalin shot him in 1938. If Russian communism collapsed, it was because Victor Chino was shot. It was the agricultural loss that made Russia bend before America. If Russian agriculture grew, it was because Victor Chino was restored later in the Glasnost and that period. Victor Chino's writings were translated into English in 1984. You must read them. What is agriculture? In India, 54% of, at least it must be less, but at one point it was estimated 54% of the agricultural produce were non-commercial, circulating only within villages and communities. Only 40-45% were entering into the commercial stream. So these are all fundamental issues. This is what has sustained India. Each person producing food for himself is a very important way of Atmanirbhar. But we want to, in fact I oppose the farm bills only because of this. I wrote to the Prime Minister, these farm bills are a problem. Of course, he didn't like it. But I did it. Because you understand farming in the Western sense, which doesn't work in India. So when you say we have to decolonize, I would go a step further, we have to Indianize our thinking.
Okay, we'll take two short questions and then we'll have to close there.
So my question is regarding demography. At one point of time, there was an issue that we have a lot of population. Then there was a debate on stabilization of the population. And now we are saying we must have, there's a positive side of having population. How this entire issue falls into this Atmanirbhar?
Okay.
Sir, I'm told that the recently concluded G20, all the food served was pure vegetarian from all parts of the country. And all the delegates relished it. Later, in the recently Gujarat Vibrant, the predominantly non-vegetarian king of Abu Dhabi was also served pure vegetarian food. And he has also relished it. Why can't this be taken as a precedent and make United Nations declare one day like they declared Yoga Day as a vegetarian?
Good, very good. Yeah, okay, one more question.
Yes, I have a basic question regarding that the technology that is being adopted today is basically a lot more based on artificial intelligence, but it will be using a lot more, data centers, etc., and a lot more water, resources like energy, etc. And a lot of these, the monetization that will be go to the big, large corporations like Microsoft, etc. So India will be, for example, a country like India will be having these data centers. For example, they are coming up with Noida, Mumbai, etc. But they are going to be using a lot more, and they are not that job efficient also, but they use a lot of land, power, water, etc. And my second question is regarding the government policy that is saying that, you start growing these, foreign foods, exotic fruits, for example, avocados, kiwis, dragon fruit, etc. But we find that, most of the seeds are not there properly at these scales.
Avocado is highly environmental unfriendly.
Yeah, absolutely. But the government policy, so why is it that the government does not promote the domestic foods and try to, where there is a lot more, competitiveness and where there, a lot more, efficiency is there. Thanks for that.
Would you like to respond to this?
Sir, in all this I find only one thing. The government can't do anything unless the people know this is what we are. The people think, they are living, you have told them for the last 70 years you are backward, your food is backward, your lifestyle is backward. They want to change over to something better. Your education system is wrong, your public discourse is wrong. Unless you are going to correct it, the government policies are not going to be corrected. If the Supreme Court rules today that everybody must have the right to the food that they want to eat, you can't control. How much illiteracy is prevailing in the Supreme Court, you must understand. It is because of the education system, the legal system, the non-differentiating between what we are and the rest of the world. We are in a huge issue because of the past mistakes we have committed. So I think it's a very big issue. Where one of the points on which I am replying to Ananda Nageshwaran is, first look at correcting the basic information in the education system. Because through environment as the vehicle, you can communicate anything to it. So this is one of the first points. I think it's a large issue and all of us must feel concerned about it because it concerns the next generation. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we'll bring this to a close now. But before we do that, I'll request Professor Ashwanimahajan to wrap it up now. I think a lot of suggestions have come for your second, third, fourth, fifth volumes.
Thank you, Dr. Arvind Gupta ji. In fact, I'm overwhelmed by the affection of each and everybody, and also I'm thankful to the Vivekananda International Foundation for having this discussion here. And I humbly accept all the suggestions, and we have already made a list of the proposed authors, and obviously Gurumurthy ji is now on our radar. In fact, the points which Gurumurthy ji has made here, in fact, I missed one major contributor of the book, and that is Dr. Mohan Bhagwat ji, who had written a brief foreword, and he has raised these issues of this. He has written the prevalent Western discourse regarding the progress of humanity relies on materialistic, fragmentary, and consumerist approach to everything that exists. And what we need to do is that all these things are purusharthas, pursuits of life, which have to be undertaken to obtain happiness, contentment, and fulfillment. Fulfilling one's desire is karma, purushartha, and the acquirement of means to do so is artha purushartha. These have to be conducted within the dharma purushartha. Within the dharma purushartha. So these are all the points which respected Gurumurthy ji has made here, that we have to be well within the four walls of dharma, and whether it is eating habits or it is the way of life. And I just wanted to say these things.
People of India are living the life of dharma. We must recognize that.
So thank you very much. It's a wonderful discussion. We have to bring it to a close, but there will be more such discussions. And I want to thank once again, this gave us an opportunity to bring everybody together. And also there are a few books here. This is one of the earlier books on Atmanirbhar Bharat, which we had produced. So I'd like to give one copy each to the panelists. Thank you. इसमें भी आपको कुछ आइडियाज मिलेंगे.
Thank you.
So thank you. Let's join for a photograph. I think we'll have a photograph in the followed by very good.
ये वेजिटेरियन डे का आइडिया बहुत अच्छा है. उनका भी बहुत अच्छा है हमारे चंद्रकांता जी हमारे कॉलेज में सीनियर प्रोफेसर हैं, हमारी क्लासमेट भी.
So you are coming to Chennai?
Not as much.
Please, we should have a meeting together.
This is a wonderful idea. It should get into co-discussion.
Basic education.
Exactly. No, that's a very important point.
One issue is that we are not writing enough. If we don't tell, we don't measure, nobody will do it.
Thank you for providing such a opportunity.
How your food contributes to environment, how your house contributes to environment, how your approach to nature contributes to environment.
She has worked with the world.
Your audience is not just transfer that onto the 10th class social science book. In 10 years, in 10 years, you are asking about we have to sorry, you were saying.
Just send her a message. Oh, phone is better, okay.
He's currently doing care.
I introduced. I have already told you.
Very nice session. Wonderful. Congratulations. This issue has to be at the forefront. Already government department.
Not my own
Vivek Sanjeev.
Why did we miss this opportunity of G20? एक करने से हम क्या है कि एक चीज में खुश हो जाते हैं, लेकिन कम से कम 20 ऐसी और करनी है. I am telling you, we are now becoming very banner oriented. Thank you. Because we fundamental technical problems are so many. Nobody is giving
This one is impromptu idea.
Come, Surya.
Yes.
Okay. Sundaram. If you don't come half the hour, then Atmanirbhar will be happy.
सर बाकी लोग क्यों पीछे रह गए? एक मिनट बाकी लोग पीछे रह गए. डॉक्टर साहब
economic activity. That's how life began. Managing our own economic activity. Right.
Come.
I think come closer.
Come closer.
You been doing?
Not well, we just did the convocation.
So you had to stand there for
No, I did 100. Then the vice said, Middle East, you can go if you like, because we'll continue. So I said, I hope it won't be misunderstood. 2 3 पे NDFC 11 तारीख है मिडिल ईस्ट वाली 18 या 21 में से हम
Because we don't speak, no? Our writers don't speak, our policymakers don't, our politicians don't know what is
One fine morning we were very stupid at it. They think about meat. Make it alive. I tell you to catch on. It is all.
in the name of environment, you can say. Whether people accept it or not is a different thing. But at least you know we are doing it.
But that's what I'm saying. Basically what happens is the fashion is sensible.
The statistics he quoted. You see, that is what clinches the argument. One week, उसका क्या तात्पर्य निकला? We need a lot more measures. And we have to do it. और तो नहीं करेगा.
जो आपने सेकंड का आइडिया दिया ना,
करिए. Individual level to the bank. जो tradition is most innate form. हम हर चीज़ को सरकार नौकरी देगी तब लाइफ सेट है. Otherwise, I don't want to. हमें सरकार नहीं दे रही है तो अब ये कह रहे हैं कि आपको श्रीलंका में 10% लोग सरकार में नौकरी करते हैं. वहाँ तो कोई रिफॉर्म होगा ही नहीं. They are stopping all reforms. उनके ambassador भी come for a presentation. वो कह रहे सारे ड्रॉप्स कोई रिफॉर्म वो नहीं कर पा रहे. 10% जैसे नागालैंड में. कोविड हो गया इतना क्राइसिस. No reform, not able. हम फैमिली लेबर फोर्स पार्टिसिपेशन ऑफ वुमेन लोगों को लोग समझते हैं मैकेनिकल है, स्विच ऑन कर दो हो जाएगा. नहीं, देखिए तो वेरी यू वांट द फैमिली.
एक बार मैं आपके पास आता हूँ.
Whatever you're saying makes you make a lot of sense. Very stimulating.
आप हमें बता दीजिए.
But we have bureaucracy plans and so on. We don't really start
Oh, of course. Welcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
What you say as a national problem is his problem also.
Sir, I am heading out.
You are not coming?
Today?
Huh?
What time?
From here we are going.
Oh, you are going there.
You know vegetarian, you know.
And plus more. There are solutions. Let people interact. But not ideal in isolation. When they interact like different. And you are very brave to get Baru to right field. You are very brave to get Baru to right field. I have a very strong opinion about this man. Because he keeps rotating his this thing. और किसी और को नहीं.
वो तो जैसे ना ये पहली किताब थी. ऐसा हमारे ऊपर आरोप नहीं आना चाहिए कि हमने एक ही
बाकी नहीं लिए.
बाकी लोगों को नहीं.
But आप खुद नहीं and get the people there. What we find is they tend to then, extremist ideas get, they get sort of rounded up. And when they talk to each other, for a people person,
अभी मैं जिसे बात कर लेता हूँ.
listening to you, I am Marshall Watson. I'm advisor, cybersecurity.
हम भी कुछ ना कुछ ऐसे
सही है, किताब कहाँ से मिलेगी?
अभी ले लीजिए अभी मैं आपको दे दूँगा।
So nice. I am not an economics student, but my father was. So I was hearing so beautiful things. I am a pure technologist. I am PhD in cybersecurity, sir. And 100%. I have 37 years in Air Force. And after that I joined BSc, working on technology. There is one book I got. उसी वाली।
अभी आप भोजन करेंगे? हाँ। यहाँ बात कर सकते हो।
बैग में है। वेरी गुड।
Please head for the lunch.
आप भोजन तो करेंगे? एक छोटा सा काम करें। आप अनिलेश महाजन हैं जो बैंकिंग में किया।
So you understand, my work has gone into a different direction.
I know.
That's why I told you I am not in finance.
So, there are two of the more conclaves we have organized. Now you tell us how we can go about it.
You give me, send me a mail.
With your time. No.
Sir, there are 3 conclaves which we are planning. One is on the 2nd of March. Second is on the 11th. Tell the topic. And third is on the 12th. Second is on the NBFC and
These are all important, but not important for me.
And 11th is on India Police. How we are next 45 years.
No, these are all important topics. But my understanding, what we have to think, I want change in the education system. Through environment, nobody can speak about anything. So I am working at a different place.
इसमें एक दिन आपका स्पेशल लेक्चर कराना अब आप कोई
This lecture won't fit into all my
not that post Middle East.
I never used lecture been arranged. Yeah. I will introduce this also, how civilization aspect is very important for national security. In an open society. It's not an open society, no issue.
One of the most intimidating topics. And all the people also know. टॉपिक बता देना उसके ऊपर अलग टॉपिक किसको भी हमने ब्लॉक करा अभी
सर
ओके
ये सुंदरम जी इज आवर नेशनल कन्वीनर स्वदेशी जागरण। आप सबसे मुलाकात नहीं हुई।
waking up a Japanese man at 4 a.m. in the morning.
When he saw
that one you remember? Yes, sir. Not only I remember at least 7 8 incidents.
But by the way, that one, if you ask me, has a different moral. That this man, after all his nothing, he's fighting for the pride of his country. So what he has up? His reaction. He will join us for lunch.
Join us for lunch. Please join us for lunch, sir.
I have to commit somewhere. I have to go.
और कुल भी रही 30 minutes. I will through
Ashwani ji, you have my WhatsApp and everything. Just pass it on. And I will come. And we will have a little. I'll bring him. I'm so impressed that you are remembering that.
7, 8, this is not this one. Even I can quote
When
more
he saw
exact-
your book in my hand,
then I can quote even words verbatim.
Then we will have a session. Ashwani ji, आप दे दीजिएगा जरूर. I'll enjoy this. अरे how are you? It's a good gift. Even we take this forward. We are planning another one.
आपने बहुत अच्छा है इससे जुड़े हो आप इससे जुड़े हो बहुत बहुत बधाई सब आपको पुनः पुनः बहुत बहुत बधाई बहुत बढ़िया एक्सलेंट वर्क
आइए ना. Friends, come.
नहीं हमारे को भी जुड़वाओ असीम सुशन हमेशा हमारे तो मैं तो देर पर तो विवेकानंद जी के भक्त थे
आइए.
बाहर कर वो कल का कोशिश है तो अगर आप
सर मैं बोला सर. हेलो जी सर मैं आ रहा हूँ 1 मिनट भेज रहा हूँ.
I'll just save your contact. Yes, I will save. That's me. That's me. It's ringing. I'll just save it. Thank you.
So nice.
Very nice.
Thank you. Good day.
Thanks. हो क्या रहा है कि वहाँ अजय सेठ वो अनाउंस कर दी ना FM कि वाइट पेपर. अश्विनी जी आप जानते हैं ना सबसे बड़ी कमी क्या है? लिखना पड़ता कौन है हमारे सिस्टम में. अब वो परसों से वो बेचारे फ़ोन किए जा रहे हैं हर 2 घंटे 3 घंटे. हम लोग अब लिख
आया कुछ उसमें वाइट पेपर स्ट्रक्चर क्या रहेगा?
देखिए हम तो कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि जो 10 साल इधर उधर का जो है ग्राफिकली डेटा वाइज प्रेजेंट करें. इतना डेटा है बल्कि इतने पब्लिकेशंस हम लोगों ने कर डाले.
मैंने ना एक डेटा निकाला था कि 8.6% इन्फ्लेशन थी.
हाँ
और हमारी
हाँ हाँ वो बल्कि हमने पीएम को भी भेजा है वो क्योंकि पीएम अभी जब राष्ट्रपति का जो स्पीच हुआ उसके बाद हमें फ़ोन आया कि इनको पूछिए जॉब्स और इन्फ्लेशन तो बल्कि जाने के पहले वही कर दें.
हम लोग 2-3 ऐसे ये कर रहे हैं जिसमें आपके सहयोग की जरूरत है। अपना एक आप पहले आए हैं PIU के एक कार्यक्रम में।
हाँ, वो जो हमने किया था।
तो 2 कंक्लेव जैसे विचार किए हैं, एक तो डिफेंस पर, मेकिंग फॉर द वर्ल्ड, और उसमें इंडस्ट्री के लोगों को इन्वॉल्व किया है, और दूसरा है IMEC के ऊपर, जो इंडिया मिडल ईस्ट इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर, जो यूरोप इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर जो बना है, और उससे बियॉन्ड, मतलब मिडल ईस्ट के साथ हमारे जो रिलेशनशिप को और ज़्यादा डीपन करने के लिए कल्चर है।
हाँ करेंगे, ये कह रहा हूँ IMEC है ना, जो गो स्लो ऑन दिस, ये होने वाला है बिकॉज ऑफ दिस इशूज देयर, इसमें अब बिकॉज मिडल ईस्ट इज नाउ इन ग्रेट टर्मोइल एंड इट मे गो अप इन स्ट्रेंथ ऑल्सो। IMEC इशू जो है अभी आप थोड़ा सा इसमें क्या होगा कि IMEC इशू में ईरान वगैरह आ जाएगा, और politically you can discuss it, but I don't think there is much potential economically right now.
तो रोलिंग में रखना है।
नहीं, मैं वैसे आपसे कह रहा हूँ, वो आप जैसे भी समझें, but my own feeling is that. But the other is, देखिए today आत्मनिर्भरता without doing means of doing business in India is no आत्मनिर्भरता। लोग जो हैं सब खुश हैं आपके रिफॉर्म से, लेकिन अभी भी डीलिंग करना जो है उनके, इसको किसी तरह से हमें सॉर्ट आउट करना है। अभी एक ट्रेंड विच आई सी विच इज ओनली एपिसोडिक, आई डू नॉट डोंट हैव द डेटा, बट लोग हमारे पास जो आते हैं नॉट जस्ट है, मैं देख रहा हूँ साइबर में देख रहे हैं, मैं देख रहा हूँ शिपिंग में जा रहे हैं, अभी थोड़ा बहुत आपका गिफ्ट सिटी प्रॉब्ली प्लानिंग टू बेटर, बट वो छोटा, बट पीपल आर एक्चुअली गोइंग एंड आई कैन, मतलब एपिसोडिक है ये, मैं आपको बुलाऊंगा, लोग आप उनसे बात कीजिए, और छोटे छोटे इशूज होंगे, वो टैक्सेशन का इशू है, इसका इशू है, इसका इशू है, GST का इशू है, तो थिंग्स आर नॉट गेटिंग सॉर्टेड आउट
करने से they want to come back, but they are not finding conducive atmosphere.
ये बात है, क्योंकि इंडिया का ग्रोथ पोटेंशियल स्टोरी हर आदमी समझता है, इंडिया का रिकॉर्ड भी बड़ा अच्छा है, ये भी सब समझता है, लेकिन अभी भी वो
मुझे कई फ्लिप हुए जो हैं स्टार्टअप, वो उन्होंने अप्रोच किया।
और देखिए समीरा जी, स्टार्टअप का बड़ा ध्यान रखिएगा, दे आर बीइंग प्रेडेटेड अपॉन, लॉट ऑफ प्रेडेटर्स, हमारे यहाँ भी लोग आते हैं इन द नेम ऑफ इंडो-US, वो दे आर ट्राइंग टू सिंपली साउथ एंड टेक द मनी। एक आदमी मेरे पास आया, वो कहता है कमला हैरिस ने उसको बोला है इंडिया में जाओ, ये 5 सेक्टर्स हैं, 5 से 6 लेके आओ, अब उनको हम 2 से 3 बिलियन की कंपनी बना देंगे, एंड ही सेज मैं इसलिए आया हूँ, और वो बाहर अब उनके क्वालिटी आ रहे हैं, वो आपसे ज़्यादा वो कर भी नहीं रहे, एंड दे आर गोइंग टू आवर, ओके थैंक यू, एंड टुडे the man came, the he was happy about it. I asked him, I hope you will not post them away. He said, that's precisely what I have come for. You know, the big them about मैं आपको I'll give you one example. We did a seminar on quantum technology. This was almost 6 months ago. बहुत बैनर हुआ क्वांटम टेक्नोलॉजी के ऊपर, हमने एक मिशन किया है, एक तो उनके अपने एडवाइजर जो उसका हेड है वो भी आया, 4 महीने से उसमें एक मीटिंग चलती, इतना बड़ा ब्यूरोक्रेटिक स्ट्रक्चर बना दिया है, मीटिंग ही नहीं हो रही, उसमें मैंने कुछ लोगों को बुलाया। तो एज यू नो क्वांटम टेक्नोलॉजी में 5 वर्टिकल्स हैं, एक में क्वांटम टेक्नोलॉजी मूव क्वाइट है, वो है आपका इंक्रिप्शन वाला। तो हमारे कंपनीज हैं जो कि दे हैव मेड प्रोडक्ट, ही शोड द प्रोडक्ट आल्सो, विच इज वेरी गुड। So he's telling the
ये डिफेंस का था, तो पहले नेवी इधर से बोल रहे हैं, नेवी वाले सब लोग ये बैठे हुए थे, किसी ने कोई प्रॉमिस नहीं किया उसको, सब उसको एंगेज करते हैं, कोई प्रॉमिस नहीं करता। इधर की मैंने एक ऑफिस खोल दिया वहाँ पे अमेरिका में, ही विल बी टेकन अवे फ्रॉम देयर, प्रॉब्ली ही इज ऑलरेडी गॉन। सारा काम यहाँ हुआ, तो ये क्या आत्मनिर्भरता हुई भाई? जो आत्मनिर्भरता में जो टेक्नोलॉजी डेवलप हो रही है वो सब बाहर वाले ले जा रहे हैं, तो लास्ट माइल में आपका कुछ है नहीं। ये प्राइम मिनिस्टर को आप प्लीज बोलिए।
ब्लॉग लिखा था तब मशहूर हुआ था वो, तो लिखिंग बाय जो आईमैक है और जो कुल मिलाकर के जो हमारा मिडिल ईस्ट के साथ जो हमारा हुआ है इकोनॉमिक कंट्रोल के नाते करना चाहते हैं, हम यहाँ पर करते हैं दिया है।
कभी से बोलिए वो let him study the library and we will do it. You are not in a reserve category. No, but you need to get 99% to get admission in it. I will tell you this nonsense. I will tell you the problem. Sorry. To make sure that the talent is here and they become diaspora.
सारे बुझ गए।
बात हुई उन्होंने कहा कि सचिन को बोलना जैसे एक बार बात करें, कह रहे थे कि कॉरिडोर बहुत आगे बढ़ने वाला नहीं है, इसमें अपनी समस्या है, कोई बात नहीं, तो कॉरिडोर तो एक सब्जेक्ट कंट्रीज के साथ तो कुछ नहीं पड़ेगा।
तो मुझे भी बड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड लग रहा था। सर what is coming to Parallel? You are also going there, no?
एक मिनट, इसके साथ भी तो मिलना है ना। Can't you avoid it?
We can spend some time at least. Get it. Yeah. I'll do the rest over.
मेरे गेम बना हुआ है वैसे ठीक है मैं ऐसे करनी थी सर अभी आई देखेंगे
But nobody trains the new ministry about
आपको कोई पॉलिसी चेंज नहीं करनी है, पॉलिसी आपकी बहुत बढ़िया है। और उसमें भी एक चीज़ मैं बताऊँ, जैसे The other day we were talking to Army Design Bureau, बड़ा अच्छा डिफेंस में रिफॉर्म्स हुए हैं जो बड़ा, लेकिन जो आदमी आउटरीच के लिए है, हमने तो एक वेबसाइट बना दी है सृजन का, आप जाके देख लीजिए। अच्छा उस सृजन का मैंने जब वेबसाइट देखा वो कहते हैं यार इंडियन आर्मी नीड्स मोटर्स, अब उस इंडियन आर्मी नीड्स मोटर्स विदाउट एनी स्पेसिफिकेशन, तो फिर अच्छा और वो जो मैन्युफैक्चरर है वो कहेगा देखो नहीं करना तो मैं जा रहा हूँ, मेरे पास तो बहुत मार्केट है। I told them in the language which I will use here. I think that kind of a move to a man like this man, he is going to be, he's got 1,000 crores turnover. He's got no capacity to be able to build vehicles. Why don't you get him over and talk to you? All the security and all, but the agent that every time outsourcing is going to be done. Just the amount of it drives me and driving is so bad. Reach up to all of them. Tell them to come, explain it to them. Including the bureaucracy of the defense services. The man in the supply chain is sending stuff to China.
इसमें देखिए
आप कीजिए हम अपना जो भी हमारा रूटीन है कंट्रीब्यूशन आते हो If you can do Sanjay Babu only God can do it. But then what you are doing, oh, as a character, I sorry to use this word. And I am being very frank because I am teaching you this. It's very difficult to cover because he is so opinionated, but he changes his opinions after every time because that is little. जैसे आज टैलेंट इन इंडिया लोगों के लिए और विदाउट एनी बिग प्रेजेंटेशन ये बात एक उसका अच्छा सा सार निकालिए और उसके साथ फिर उसको प्रोपेगेट कीजिए, ये मेरा वो आप कीजिए अपने ऐसा है बोलना जरा एक टिश्यू देगा टिश्यू
वहाँ पे देखिए one of the issues like China में if you have a publication in science या nature वो देगी भी रख गया $50,000 यहाँ पे you try to educate a bureaucrat what is the value of this but will know this ना वो पढ़ते हैं ना they understand or value.
Thank you.
You see that is
कुछ कह रहे थे आप अच्छा चलिए ठीक है तो आते रहिए आप, आज भी शाम को हमारा एक मत है। In the UK, 30 to 40,000. I wanted.
We are Indian.
आप आज सुंदरम जी हैं, हमारे कन्वीनर हैं ऑल इंडिया के।
अच्छा अच्छा।
मद्रास में रहते हैं, चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट, नॉन चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट। हम लोग पिछले 30 साल से इकट्ठा काम कर रहे हैं।
वेरी नाइस।
स्वदेशी में हम लोग मिलकर चल रहे हैं। गुरुमूर्ति जी
अच्छा ओके।
Thank you. Nice.
Murthy, we know each other from 1977 onwards.
आ जाओ।
Are you ready for the eye? You have to stop anything. You know what you said?
इनका क्या है?
And you said this is about keeping a fit man. Are you ready to about maintaining?
एक जगह ये रहता था।
This is a concept. I mean, we self-control. One of my regiment dad, he lost his son. He's 42 years old. Because of cold, because of lifestyle. You know, the lifestyle is but today, it's a basic in the middle class. This is a dangerous profession. These things from a lifestyle. जैसे अमेरिकन की अभी की बात कर रहे थे and when you go there to America, even the way they support rules really for supporting like a pro democrat, these are the things that we talked about and we are talking about actually in a very subtle way, you can make them learn what is it. Lifestyle, without quantification, you can bring out the benefits of this also which are attached to that. I think these are the
Did you get in touch with Anish Gurunais? I think he is very knowledgeable. In fact, he is helping us. We went to Saudi with him. वो IMA कोशिश में अनाउंस हुआ था। वो he will help a lot. ये कुछ लोग बिजनेस के ऊपर कुछ IMA के ऊपर करना चाहते हैं।
बिल्कुल सही है। अच्छा उसमें पता क्या हुआ? वो जो आपको याद है? जब बिल्कुल भी नसिंदा
डॉक्टर
को आया वो बहुत
वेरी गुड।
और ये को मैं कनेक्ट करा। मुझे 2-3 बार हो गया। रॉयल फैमिली ऑफ द साउदी
हम मिले थे मीटिंग इंडियन इन सऊदी अरेबिया मिशन में कुछ लोग आए थे। रियली अमेजिंग टू हियर देम एंड ऑफ कोर्स दिस वाज इन लास्ट सितंबर और
सचिन जी को भी उनका नाम बहुत पसंद आया था। उन्होंने कहा नहीं उनको आना ही चाहिए।
सैटरडे संडे को और बड़े अपने काम होते हैं। So I could not make it that day.
सर योर विजिट इज ऑलवेज
देवेश हमें जाना है यार आपके यहाँ।
अगर मैं सर जब सर को देखता हूँ आज ये बोलते सर ये बोलते
तो भी गिल्ट फीलिंग है दोनों में।
कम से कम एक चौथी दफा हो चुका है। आपके यहाँ जाना है अब वापस आते हैं तो
ये बता
अब ये लोग सर हमेशा सर कहीं ना कहीं जा रहे होते हैं
इस बार कब पिछली बार मैं जा रहा हूँ
ये को डेट लगाया था आपको नेबर ने आई थिंक यू गॉट द पॉइंट आप गए चलेंगे आई थिंक यू मस्ट
रियल आत्मनिर्भर यहाँ हो रही
है। आप आए अभी हम सभी बता रहे हैं हमारे पास 300 स्टार्टअप है।
ये डिफेंस सॉरी डेटा सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल इंडिया में ये रिटायर्ड IBM है एयरपोर्ट से।
हम तो सर हमारे जिंदगी है सर के साथ बहुत काम किया सर।
फिर हम आपको पकड़ लेंगे।
सर की वजह से तो DC भाई ये बना। हम लोग तो साइबर कमांड बना रहे थे सर।
बट मनोहर पर्रिकर साहब ने उसमें कटौती कर दी पैसे
आपका
सर, गुड न्यूज़ ये है सर, देयर वाज अ एपीटी अटैक ऑन, आपको तो बधाई देता हूँ सर,
कहाँ
ऑन पावर ग्रिड।
कब
बस ये सर अपने तक रखिएगा, एंड अनदर ओएनजीसी आल्सो, सो इट इज ऑल हो गया 3-4 महीने।
अच्छा
ओएनजीसी को भी रिजॉल्व, बिकॉज हमारे एक स्टार्टअप ने पकड़ लिया कि आई आपको जो क्रिटिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर वाले को कुछ नहीं कर पाया, सेट इंडिया कुछ नहीं कर पाया, they are all using old technology, we are using AI enabled sir,
ये आर्टिफिशियल और क्वांटम टेक्नोलॉजी में
EDR एंड पॉइंट डिटेक्शन एंड रिस्पॉन्स सिस्टम हमारे एक बच्चे ने बनाया, कंपनी का नाम है मातीसॉफ्ट। अब ओएनजीसी ने सर उसको 4 करोड़ ऑर्डर दिया। उसके बाद CMD का मेरे पास फोन आया टारगेट से, कहीं से कनेक्ट लगाया कि हमारे यहाँ कुछ हो गया है, तो मैंने कहा डोंट डिस्कस ऑन फोन, आई विल कम एंड मीट यू। वी गेव द टास्क, ही स्कैन, एंड सर सेम जो एम्स में अटैक था, they are sitting everywhere and nobody is listening to us, all PSUs need to be scanned because जब वो उभर के आएगा तब आपको पता चलेगा आपके साथ क्या होने वाला है। इट्स अ रैनसमवेयर अटैक सर, शैडोपैड करके वायरस है, एंड द सेम वायरस वाज एक्सिस्टिंग देयर इन दिस सिस्टम।
तो ये बताओ, आप इसको जानते हैं, ये बाला
जो स्टॉक एक्सचेंज में बॉम्बे में था अभी,
साइबर विद्यापीठ,
हाँ हाँ जानता हूँ
वो काफ़ी
अच्छा अच्छा ICSE सर तभी, अच्छा
ICSE सर ने दे दिया।
अच्छा UGC का है,
वहाँ से आगे UGC में
तो कराइए। ये जर्नल बहुत ज़रूरी है। आप और हम कितने किताब लिखेंगे अश्विनी जी, जर्नल चाहिए जिसमें एक डिसेंट एडिटोरियल हो, जिसको भी सेंसिटाइज कि भाई दीज आर द बिग इशू, ऑफिस स्कॉलर्स करेंगे। इसी जैसे वो इतने सारे, वो क्या है वो इंस्टीट्यूट IHD, अलग शर्मा, आप तो थे उस दिन, तो हम तो उनको यही कह रहे थे कि अलग जी और करिए पब्लिश, और ऐसे ऐसी चीज़ करिए जिसमें कोई रेलेवेंस हो।
जैसे आज ही बात अभी हो रही है, आप दिन जैसे क्या है जो हमारे स्टार्टअप्स हैं जो
जा रहे हैं बाहर,
लिफ्ट कर रहे हैं, तो उनको वापस लाना वो भी एक अपने आप में चैलेंज है। वो कह रहे हैं कि हमें आपको कंडीसिव एटमॉस्फेयर दीजिए, हम आने के लिए तैयार हैं,
पर वो गिफ्ट के थ्रू आने को क्यों नहीं तैयार है सर? वी हैव टू एक्सप्लोर, बिकॉज वहाँ पे तो वी हैव रिलैक्स मेनी थिंग्स, वहाँ पे ऐसे दिक्कत होनी नहीं चाहिए, अनलेस इट इज अ वैल्यूएशन
गिफ्ट ऑल थिंग्स आर लिबरलाइज्ड।
लेट्स सी
वी हैव टू ट्राई।
ऐसा ना एक बार एक मीटिंग कराते हैं लोग,
करेक्ट, ठीक है, हम वाइट पेपर लिखने नमस्ते,
अच्छा सा लिख दीजिएगा। और मैंने आपको जो बताया इसमें ग्रोथ में उनकी ग्रोथ
में ग्रोथ है, इन्फ्लेशन है, अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट है, इसको देखिए। फिर अमेनिटीज़ में आप लोअर 50% पे अगर देखिए तो देखिए इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कितना पता है, 43 था, अब है 92। हाँ
जो आपका UNDP की जो मल्टी डायमेंशनल पावर की 10% डिक्लाइन है पर एनम हमारे समय में है, और उनके समय में 6% था।
आज वही कोशिश ये कर रहे हैं कि थोड़ा सा डीए के थ्रू
वो मैंने अपना आर्टिकल PMO में भेजा था।
अच्छा,
उसके बाद फिर CSE वाले शुरू हुए थे, आपको ध्यान है? MDI वाला दिन तो बिल्कुल चुप्पी छाई थी, कोई बोल ही नहीं रहा था भाई। वहाँ से मल्टी डायमेंशनल पॉवर्टी इंडेक्स आ गया,
और आप क्यों नहीं बात कर रहे हैं इस बारे में?
यहाँ कोई बात ही नहीं कर रहा था।
ये तो दिक्कत है, ये तो दिक्कत है।
फिर मैंने PMO में भेजा, उसके बाद फिर नीति आयोग से
It's a very valid point, sir. I completely agree. Okay, see, namaste.
Okay. So what I told you, Sridhar had a flat in Bengal, 4 billion. They have given it back to him. So what Sridhar told me, he is coming, he is going to US, I will come to Delhi on 19th. I will come for 2-3 days or 1-6 months. He said, you use that flat. The cook is there, secretariat is there. Already from 3
when he is here in
19th.
When he is here in town, we will shift somewhere else.
19th February, market, we will shift.
Yeah, that's great. एक मिनट बैठे कैन वी सिट इनसाइड चलो ठीक है ये किसका है ठीक है
सर इसमें वीज़े की दिक्कत आ रही है कि वीज़े की फीस मांग रहे हैं फीस एग्जाम्पशन होगी देना पड़ेगा
नहीं
नहीं बट वो तो मांगे रहे ना
नहीं उनको कहो नहीं वो चिट्ठी जो है ना वो
दे दी ना इनको खुल नहीं रही थी तो पीडीएफ
हाँ हाँ बस वो दे दोगे तो फिर नहीं आएगी
ठीक है
वो नहीं आता
तो आधा करना
This is Bengali market. I will give you the address. You go and see. This is 4-bedroom flat.
ठीक है एक बैठने के लिए जगह मिल जाएगी
मार्केट इज गुड
I think we will move there and then we will. Bengali market is near your office or
वो ना we are saying that we have to take CIU under our fold है ना तो the moment we say that तो उनको जो इंटरनली हम बात करेंगे तो उनको उसमें they can create a problem in our team about the functioning of the CIU है ना तो उसमें क्या हम इसमें रास्ता निकाल सकते हैं what way we can find out in this है ना the moment we say that so what is your suggestion?
I am not able to understand what you want.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that you said na that we have to take CIU under our fold of the Rishija government है ना
The problem I am facing two problems because of that. Now today this program has not informed any of my colleagues. So they are all a bit upset. Well, Ashwanimahajan is our subject. Lieutenant Chalak has written the forward. It was written only because Ashwanimahajan was national program, but there is no information or invitation to us. I think in that area they are right. But as far as CIU is concerned, it's a different organization. I told them the banking conflict, this is their problem. And I can, all over the country, I can go to any institution, any conference, I can participate, so that I need not inform. So CIU is an entirely different entity. But this type of programs, you have to inform.
But now if we want to take CIU in our fold and we have to own it.
No, I am for it.
We have to take
I am for it.
So you suggested now that in the structure of CIU we need to make some changes.
Now what is the structure? Both of you are there or not?
No. As far as the आप explain करो.
Ownership structure? Ownership structure is that we are two people. So my wife, she has 95% and 5% Aditya Malik who works with us. He does all the secretarial work with us. So 5% is that's only because that act required two people. So it is between this. And then we have a governing board where all of these guys are there. So whatever decision has to be taken is taken, I think, largely by consulting.
What I suggest is, you both of you and wife or whatever structure, you both of you become equal. You become equal share, equal partners, 50-50%. Then you represent each other.
95 is also yours.
वहाँ ना मैं जहाँ बैठा था ना
कोई प्रॉब्लम whatever it is.
I am just giving him confidence. Whatever
percentage doesn't matter. Increase matter. Percentage is that we can always look for.
So यही कह रहे थे
खाली हो जाएगा
ये तो सैंडविच
वो सीए करें आप
हाँ
My
Then-
suggestion is that enter after 31st of March.
whatever वो ना उसमें फिर इनके ये चुप हो जाएंगे ना. और देखो पता क्या है, I have the reason why I didn't invite them. You know.
No, that's the thing. That leave it.
हाँ.
Here, Atmanirbhar Bharat. This is our function, sir. This they could have informed them. Here I am not talking. This is completely different. At one point of time, we have see only problem there is Satish. Technology is manageable. Only problem is Satish. So I want to do something about him in the national Prithvi Sabha.
सर एक काम करेंगे ना, क्रेडिट वाला जो
Otherwise, there is no issue.
क्रेडिट वाला जो प्रोग्राम है क्रेडिट, तो उसमें कश्मीरी लाल जी को एक सेशन में बुला लेंगे. वी कैन डू इनॉग्रल सेशन में. और देन कश्मीरी लाल जी वो हमने कर दिया ना. देन
Don't invite suggestions. Please just inform him, but don't give him a session. Kashmir Lalji is coming, then Satish will come and sit. Then they will go.
So inaugural session में, we can make him sit there. Then it's okay. Valedictory में यहाँ पर.
Other events we can send invitation and leave it there. For Middle East they don't know anything. You can just inform them. And then one event you ask him to give a presidential or inaugural letter, whatever it is. Then you keep on sending invitations to them.
Done, sir.
But don't we should not allow them completely into the marginal information we can give.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, ना this program deliberately didn't call. They didn't invite. You know,
The body language of Satish.
They vitiate the atmosphere.
So not only in Delhi, wherever they go, especially Satish ji, I am getting similar inputs from Chandigarh.
Everywhere.
So I don't want to spoil. You know, we are
just sharing now.
We are having such a great gathering here.
They only missed it. The Kashmir Lalji had he come alone, he would have enjoyed it.
आज का गया था मुझे.
I बताया था.
I am told he was about to come. Then he had a call with Satish ji and then he changed his mind.
Loss is there.
So now we will move to Bengali model. Coming back to our seats, I will talk to Satish. So meanwhile, if I get the address, I will send it to you. Because he is in States. So I will ask him to inform the caretaker so that he can go and see. I don't know whether Gurumati has taken out this luggage or not. They have told him that both of us are moving to some other house. Balbir Post.
That's good. God has listened to us.
तो नॉलेज में तो वैसे भी नाइस. सेंट्रल दिल्ली है. So even we can request people to come there.
Already one or two stops are there. A cook is there. So that's not a problem for him. And we will appoint 2 to 3 more people for our activity.
Printer और बाकी चीज़ें रखनी है. और
Other things are there. Already things are there, sir. Computer, printer, everything is there. Xerox machine, everything is there.
Otherwise, I could have brought the.
Not necessary.
लेकिन ये ना हमने take the CIU to a level,
Yes.
है ना?
Yes.
और people are with us. They need such platforms to really take
Banking
India forward.
corporate was really a class thing. Middle East very important. Even Prime Minister will do that. Because it also brings Muslims closer to.
वही idea है.
Strategically he will apply his mind to the vote bank.